a cape. Capes were not in style in the 1800s, or the 1830s. Now, personally, I don't really complain, because it kind of makes him look like a superhero. And here in Houston, he kind of is a superhero. This statue points to the spot where about 14 miles southeast of us, you find the San Jacinto Battleground. Anyone ever been? Pretty cool. That is the site where in 1836, Sam Houston gave his now famous speech of "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad." Not many people remember Goliad. That was the speech that he used to inspire his troops, to rally them, to make that final push for independence. At San Jacinto, Sam Houston led a force of 900 Texian and Tejano forces against over 11,000 Mexican soldiers, led personally by President Santa Anna himself. The ensuing battle has since been described as one of the most one-sided victories in world military history. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The Mexican forces suffered 600 casualties, while the Texans only suffered 11. That was the decisive battle that won Texas independence, thereby creating the Republic of Texas. Texas was at one point its own sovereign nation. Texans, y'all might not know, Texans don't talk about it very much.
Yeah.
It's a really, really little known fact. We are actually one of only 2 states in the U.S. to have been a sovereign nation before joining the Union, and we're the only ones to have joined willingly, so, you know, go us. Now, the reason we start our tour here actually has nothing to do with Sam. I just like telling the story. The reason we're starting here is because of the pedestal upon which he stands. In many traditions, notably Celtic and Hindu belief, doorways and archways can act as barriers that the living can pass through, but the dead cannot. This is believed to be the reason why ghosts are trapped inside houses and buildings. This is believed to be the reason why you often see archways at the entrance of cemeteries. This is believed to be the reason why you have to invite a vampire in before he comes through your front door. So while officially those fountains are the physical entrance of Herman Park, many people consider this archway to be the spiritual entrance. A lot of people, especially on my tours, report feeling a change as they walk under the arch. It could be something external, maybe a change in the wind, or the air feels different, there's a change in temperature, it might be cooler or hotter, you might get a chill down your spine, you might feel uneasy like you're being watched. It could be something as mundane as you get a tummy ache when you walk. Either way, if you are feeling brave enough to walk under the arch tonight, please take note of the way you feel before and after. And if anything changes, speak up. If you feel anything, say something. Because you might not be the only one. Anyone feel anything?
No.
Nothing? That's alright. The night is still young. We'll have better luck, hopefully. Let me, before we head out, let me check in. You, sir. Party 1, check in. Alright.
You got me?
I got you.
Okay.
You're good. Is it easy to see in that thing?
Yes, it is.
This here, the Jesse H. Jones reflecting pool. Combined with the Sam Houston Monument and the Pioneer Monument on the other end, this little area is the most well-known spot here at Herman Park. Very iconic place here in Houston. Now, Herman Park, I consider to be the heart of Houston. Not because it's centrally located, it's not. We're like in the southwest quadrant, I think. But more so where we are in relation to other things in the city. So, to the north of us, we have the historic and culturally rich Montrose neighborhood. To the west of us, we have Rice University, Ivy League College. To the east of us, we have the Houston Museum District, home to some of the most visited museums in the country. And to the south of us, we have the Texas Medical Center, world-renowned, one of the foremost centers for medical science and practice in the world. And right in the middle of all that, we got Herman Park. Now, this park was built in 1914, and it was named after a man named George Herman. George Herman was a wealthy oil industrialist around the turn of the century who originally was from Houston, and he wanted to give back to the city as much as he could. He is the one whose name is on Memorial Herman Hospital, and of course Herman Park. He purchased a bunch of land right here near the city and donated to become Houston's second ever municipal park. You could say that he really put his soul into this park because he died about 7 months later. Now, not much is known about this land before Herman purchased it. We do know that there was at one point a sawmill somewhere around here, but according to legend, there's something a little darker. We stand just south of the city's Civil War burial ground. This was a place where bodies coming back from the Civil War who were never claimed, maybe their family was too poor to afford a grave, or they just were never identified, were buried in one mass, unorganized, unmarked grave. Now, because it was disorganized and unmarked, we actually don't know exactly where it was. We know where it started. We don't know how far it went. So according to local rumor, that burial ground stretched beyond the boundaries of what is now Herman Park. You guys remember what I said about archways and entrance to cemeteries?
Mm-hmm.
Now, during the Victorian era, when a family member died, you held a wake in your home for 3 days and 3 nights. This was time for you to, process your grief. Friends and family could come visit. You could check the body's pockets for any of the money they might owe you. And it was the 1800s. Medical science wasn't what it is now. After 3 days, you could tell if they really were dead or not. But during this time, it was customary to cover every single mirror in the house, because they believed that the mirrors could trap the spirits of the dead as they made their journey from the land of the living to whatever lies beyond. This is believed to be the reason why breaking a mirror is said to be bad luck. So I want to ask you guys, what kind of pool is this? A reflecting pool. And it's not called that because you can meditate over here. Once this fountain kicks off, although even when it's still running, the water is very reflective. It is designed to reflect the sky above it. And when the fountain turns off, the water, it's still as glass. This is essentially a giant mirror sitting right on top of an unmarked, disturbed burial ground. So as we walk around tonight, you guys make sure to keep an eye on this pool, because it's associated with many different spirits. Now, if you guys are going to be taking pictures tonight, you're going to be looking for 3 things. These are orbs. Those are the round balls of light that are floating around. You're looking for vortexes. These are the strange mists, sort of an amorphous shape. We're going to cross this way, I think. Or apparitions. That is a human form. That is the thing everyone wants to find. That's the Holy Grail. If you're taking pictures tonight, I have 3 tips. 1, take multiple shots at the same angle. 2, use flash. pictures tonight, always check back in the morning with a fresh set of eyes. You'd be surprised what you miss. So here we are at the benches. Now I don't think I need to explain the concept of a park bench to you guys, right? Pretty straightforward. But this is actually the site of one of our most recent ghost stories. Back in 2019, a man named Albert crashed his ex-girlfriend's Christmas party. He forced his way inside, grabbed her, pulled her outside, shot her in the head in front of 13 of her friends and family.
No.
Albert evaded police for 4 days before they got a tip that he was here in Herman Park. 2 squad cars rolled up. Officers got out, guns drawn. Sure enough, he was sitting right here on these benches, with a bag in his lap. They approach him, they order him to freeze. As soon as he sees the police, he stands and starts to run. As he does, he turns and his hand reaches to that bag. And that's enough.
Yeah.
The cops open fire and he is gunned down right on this path. Now, many people believe that when you are an evil person and you die horribly or violently, that your spirit could be doomed to relive the moment of your death over and over and over again in perpetuity as a form of eternal punishment. Now these benches are quite popular with people. I mean, obviously they're very, nice quiet spot, very picturesque, good view of the pool and the big trees. It's really nice. It's not uncommon to see people sitting on these benches. Maybe one of our city's downtrodden needing a place to sleep, or a young couple enjoying a quiet moment at the end of a date, or maybe just the weary and tired looking to rest their feet, maybe the elderly, maybe just a tired ghost tour customer. But as we're walking around, if you guys see someone, a man, sitting on this bench all by himself, either sitting or standing and starting to run, and you turn back, and he's gone without a trace, you might have just seen Albert. He is one of our most commonly sighted ghosts, and he's seen on almost any one of these benches on this side of the river. You guys make sure to keep your eye out and your cameras at the ready. Yeah, come over here. kind of a quiet little idyllic spot. Kind of gets overlooked. No one really pays it much mind. I've just got, you know, some shaded little benches here. What this actually is performance space. Think about it. You got, you know, kind of a Greek style colonnade. And then right here, imagine like a band, musicians or dancers. And then out here, imagine folding chairs or benches. Y'all see it? Makes sense? Kind of like an outdoor Greek style theater. Now, were any of y'all at any point in your lives into theater or other performing arts?
I'm taking a theater class right now.
All right. Did I see another hand? So then y'all probably know the importance of acoustics, right? Most theaters are built with acoustics in mind, and this place is no different. This concave section actually acts as an echo trap to bounce all the sound out this way, used for, you know, performing. But what it has a secondary function as is a whispering wall. Meaning that if you stand on either end and speak into the wall, you can hear the person on the other end as if they were standing right next to you. But someone standing out here would not hear a thing. So what happens is a lot of people come by here not knowing what this is. They're talking with their friends, and, you know, maybe there's a group of people. They're hanging around, and they'll hear a whisper or a voice next to them as if someone was speaking to them, but there isn't someone. Then they ask their friend out here, like, hey, did you hear that? And they say, no, I didn't hear anything.
Can you give us an example?
Oh, you'll be able to try it here in just a second.
Okay.
But people will chalk this up to a ghost. They'll say this place is haunted, but actually, it's not a ghost. It's just physics. Just an echo.
Oh.
So, this is a ghost story that has a rational scientific explanation. So I tell you this, one, because science is cool, but two, because I want y'all to know that when we get a paranormal claim, we try our best to find a rational explanation for it. Before we call something haunted, we do our due diligence and try and figure out exactly what is going on. So when we say that something is unexplained, you know we mean it. And if you guys want, y'all can go ahead and try this out.
What are your suggestions? Like, should we ask a question or say something?
So if my suggestions is I'll kind of point out the best spot, speak in a low voice, not a breathy whisper, and then
Against the wall?
yeah, into the wall,
Into the wall.
and then whoever's on the other end will hear you.
Okay.
So right about there, and a breathy whisper doesn't really work too well, but like a low kind of speaking voice is perfect.
Low pitch.
Yeah, actually low pitch sounds do carry a little bit better. So you'd probably be able to hear both of them on either end, but I'm gonna stop talking and we're going to explain to. And you guys can kind of play around with like your volume, your pitch, like which angle you're speaking at.
I want to become successful. When will I be successful and complete my dreams?
Can you hear it? Did you hear her? A little bit? Sometimes it's
What
super clear,
should I do
sometimes it's
next?
very faint. You can see how that would trick someone into thinking it's a ghost, right? Oh my god.
You heard me?
Yeah.
I would like to be successful. What should I do next? Is the other dimension a peaceful dimension, or should we worry about trouble?
Yeah, you heard it? Pretty clear?
Pretty clear.
You can see how someone would think that's a ghost, right?
Check your recordings afterwards.
Oh,
You
yeah.
might hear something you didn't hear the first time.
See, the supernatural is cool, but science, honestly,
Yeah.
just a little bit cooler, I think.
Science just have logic, but this is like the non-logic.
Alright, did everyone get a
Unless
chance to try it?
there's a science behind that.
Alright, let's go ahead. Alright. So here we are at the entrance to the Japanese gardens, opening right out to the other end of the reflecting pool. Now, I want to take this time to tell you guys about two very similar but very distinct ghosts. One of whom is very old and we don't know who he is. The other one, very recent. The first one I call the Falling Man. Now, we don't know who he is. Maybe he's someone who died in the Civil War. Maybe someone who died more recently in Herman Park. I mean, this is an inner city park. Things happen. He is seen basically on the rim of the reflecting pool at any point along the perimeter. People always see him. Anyway, he stands on the edge, spreads his arms wide, and falls in. But when people rush to go help him, not only is he gone, but the water is undisturbed.
Oh God.
The other spirit comes from 2019 again. It was the third of a series of 3 years where we pulled a body out of a body of water here in Herman Park. One body a year. 2017, they pulled someone out of the municipal golf course water hazard. 2018, it was out of McGovern Lake. 2019, they pulled a body out of the reflecting pool. This was a young man who was leaving the Japanese gardens when he was attacked by an unknown assailant who opened fire and gunned him down, falling into the pool. So people claim to see this young man, especially in the evenings, walking out of the gates of the Japanese gardens.
Not walking in like that guy right there?
Not like that, other way.
Okay.
Walking out and then spasming violently as if his body was being impacted by bullets and then falling in. But just like the other ghost, when people go to help him, there is nothing. Now, our path is come down this way. We're actually going to be going all the way around the reflecting pool. So at various points tonight, you'll be able to see the pool. You'll always be checking back. Always have that camera ready. Because you never know when he's going to show up.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if I were, or any of us were to see somebody in the water, are we gonna hear water splashes or not, or like mute water splashes?
If it is a spirit, sometimes people hear splashes, sometimes people do not.
Okay.
It all depends on how particularly strong that event is. Sometimes they can't muster the sound.
Got it.
All right, so we are going to head this way. No ghost story. I just gotta keep drinking. Yes. This is natural reclaimed habitat for endangered species. Next, I would like to tell you guys the story of a man named Carl Eugene Watts. Carl Watts was a serial killer, better known as the Sunday morning slasher. He was formally convicted of killing 13 and later 14 women. However, he later confessed to over 30. He is connected or loosely suspected in about 80 more. If those numbers are all true, that would put him as one of the most prolific American serial killers, past Gary Ridgway and up near Samuel Little. He was active between the years of 1976 and 1982. Most of this was taking place in his hometown in Michigan, where he's originally from. However, following a messy divorce in 1980, he got a new job in Temple, Texas, moved down here, and he would make the hour and change drive into Houston to do his hunting. 11 of his 30 plus known victims were killed in Houston, and 2 of them are believed to have been taken and possibly killed here in Herman Park. One of them was a Miller Outdoor Theater employee leaving work late one night after a performance, and the second was a Rice University student doing her early morning jog along the park's trails. Thankfully, in 1982, one of his would-be victims managed to escape. She ran to the police and she identified him. They arrested Carl Eugene Watts, charged him with murder. Now, we did not have enough evidence here in Texas to convict him, at least not without a plea deal. So, he pled guilty, and in exchange, we took the death penalty off the table. He got life in prison, but after this, we sent him back up to Michigan, but they had a lot more evidence on him. They gave him the death penalty. He died in 2007 on death row in Michigan, awaiting execution. He died of pancreatic cancer. Pretty bad. Now, he died in Michigan, all the way on the other side of the country. Many people believe that when dark acts of great evil are committed in a place, it leaves a scar, a stain, a dark imprint, marking that area for generations. So many people, especially in the early hours of the morning or the late hours of the evening, walking the park trails, particularly the darker, more secluded, less well lit, more forested trails, just like the one that we are about to walk down now, report feeling a presence, a dark, foreboding atmosphere. They feel like they're being watched, like they are not alone, and whatever it is not present. So as we walk through this next section of the tour, you guys feel free to use your flashlight if you need to. Remember, keep it out of my face, please. And of course, if you feel anything, speak it. Right this way.
When you say hunting, he was hunting for people?
Hunting his victims, yes.
Oh my Angie.
This here is Poltergeist Bridge. Now, Poltergeist is not just a very cool movie from the 1980s. It is a type of ghost. Specifically, it is a German word that translates to noisy spirit. Poltergeists are hauntings who manifest themselves not to the eyes, but to the ears. These are the ghosts that bang, that shout, that stomp feet and slam doors. They throw objects across the room. They make electrical equipment go haywire. And they're often associated with something called a phantom smell. These are, obviously, as the name suggests, smells with no apparent origin. They just come up out of nowhere, very distinct, and go away. The two most commonly reported phantom smells anywhere in the world is thick, heavy perfume if it's a woman, or tobacco smoke if it's a man. I don't know why those two smells. Maybe for some reason those two smells really entwine with a person's sense of self, sense of being, that their soul carries into the afterlife. Maybe it's just because everyone 100 years ago was smoking and every woman wore thick perfume. I don't know. But we call this Poltergeist Bridge because on the other side of the bridge, there's a tree in the middle of the path. You know, an oak tree. It's got a horizontal branch about 6.5 feet off the ground. And that branch is where many people claim to see a young man sitting. Up in the tree, sitting on the branch, people describe him wearing a white shirt and either overalls or suspenders. And whether you see him with your eyes or you see him with your camera, or even if you don't see him at all, people always associate him with the distinct aroma of cherry tobacco. Very specific. So, when we cross the bridge and come to this tree, you guys have your cameras out. It's a good place to take pictures, but more importantly, have your nose open. Be smelling. If you smell anything, please speak up. But obviously, if you guys have not noticed, Poltergeist Bridge does not have a hand railing. So please watch where you step, or else this walking tour will become a swimming tour.
That smells like the stoners. If you find a ghost, you should put it online.
I will. I will for sure.
Have you ever guys ever walked like to a hallway and it smells like a woman's perfume?
No.
Oh my God. I've been in the man's bathroom and it smells like a woman's perfume.
Oh no.
And I've always thought somebody's there. As long as you don't touch me or pull my head, pull me, you're good.
Leave me alone, I'll leave you alone.
This here is McGovern Lake, and we're going to be turning our attention across the lake where you see that flagpole in the distance. Y'all see that?
Yes.
Sticking up out of the trees. That is the entrance of the Houston Zoo. Any of you guys ever been?
No.
If you have not been, I cannot recommend it enough. It is the second most visited zoo in the country after San Diego, and it is a world-renowned, top-notch zoological institution, contributing to conservation projects all over the world and home to countless incredible species. And if you haven't been, or you're thinking of going, or if you've been but you haven't been in a minute, or if you went yesterday, honestly, it's never a better time to go than now. Because the zoo, for the last 8 years or so, has been undergoing a series of major renovations. Huge projects, basically upgrading the entire zoo, adding in new species, new areas. The whole place is incredible, and it is all in celebration of the zoo's centennial anniversary. This was in 2022. Is anyone here a math genius that wants to do the math and tell me when the zoo was founded? What was that?
I'm not from Houston.
1922. You are so smart. So the zoo was founded in 1922. And it got started with a cage with a bison named Earl. Now, of course, obviously the zoo expanded several times over the years, and many of these formative years were shaped by its first director. This was a man named Hans Nagel. Hans was a German-born expat who literally jumped ship into Galveston Bay at the onset of World War I because he did not want to go back to Germany and fight in the war. So in Galveston Bay, he swam to shore, made his way to Houston, and started working here in Herman Park. Sure enough, when the zoo started, he started working there, and he quickly became in charge. And I could best describe Hans as Steve Irwin meets P.T. Barnum. Real natural showman. He was your archetypal great white hunter, wearing khakis with boots and a pith helmet, who would travel the world to far-off exotic lands and bring back with him wild, ferocious beasts for the world to see. And every time he did that, he made certain that the press was there to see it. He loved the media, he loved attention, and he was famous for doing several highly publicized stunts, such as alligator and snake wrestling shows, which included venomous snakes. He would do big cat taming shows with the lions and leopards inside the cage with them. One time he even broke a zebra and rode it around the park. Now, among his many eccentricities, he did not trust security guards. He was, for a time, deputized by the police force before he got a little big for his britches and they revoked it. But the entire time, every single night, he made sure to patrol the grounds all alone, just by himself, with nothing but a flashlight and his pistol. Well, he did this until 1941. One night, as he's making his rounds, he comes across a pair of teenagers parked in a car. He starts approaching them, but he has not spoken to them yet. As he's approaching, a deputy shows up. Now, the deputy knows who Hans is. He's dealt with him before. He goes and he confronts Hans. Hans is having absolutely none of this. This is his zoo. He's in charge. Well, the deputy tries to take Hans in, and there is an altercation. The two men argue, they get heated. Both men reach for their guns, but the deputy's a little bit quicker. He unloads all 6 rounds of his revolver into Hans's chest, and Hans dies right outside of the zoo that he loved oh so much. Now, the zoo has since expanded, and the site where Hans fell is now where we find the zoo's commissary building. This is the building where every day the daily diets of the animals are prepared. Now, because zookeepers like to have all the animal food ready to go by the time they start their day at 9, the commissary staff has to get there and start working a lot earlier, like 3 to 4 a.m. So when they get to work, they're usually the only ones in the whole zoo. And as they're working in the commissary building, they often report hearing voices, objects moving while their backs are turned, doors opening and closing on their own. And especially when there's only one person in the building at the time, they will see a man dressed in khakis leaning on a doorway. But when they double take, he's gone. Now, despite this, staff at the Houston Zoo really aren't bothered. They're not scared. As far as they're concerned, it's just Hans, doing in death what he did in life, walking around at night and keeping an eye on his son. Right this way. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You're probably thinking, man, I didn't realize there'd be so many ghosts on this ghost tour. It's like ghosts, 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 all this guy talks about. Well, don't worry, I hear you. And our next story is going to take a bit of a break from the ghosts. I'm going to tell you guys differently. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Not a secret, but the secret. The Secret is a book published in 1982 by a man named Byron Price. Now this book is a fantasy book. It tells a very simple story of elves and fairies driven from their homes by dark forces who find refuge in a beautiful new land. They bring with them treasures from their homes to spread across this new land for others to enjoy. This is a very thinly veiled allegory for immigration in America. America, land built by immigrants, all these different people coming from different parts of the world, bringing a little bit of home with them, all tossed it into the great American melting pot. Now, while it's a very nice sentiment, what people are actually interested in this book is not the story, but what is after the story. The last chunk of the book contains 12 paintings and 12 poems. These paintings, I would describe them as fantasy abstract. They're kind of like the same style as like the old Conan the Barbarian pulp novels, you know, like the covers on them, but they're a little odd. The more you look at them, the more you see images hidden inside the painting. Some of them are symbols or letters or numbers. The more you look, the more you see. Now the poems, they give landmarks, they give directions, they're clearly giving some kind of instructions. However, they are worded so cryptically that it's actually very hard to make out what they're talking about. Now this is just not any ordinary collection of strange poems and paintings. These are actually treasure maps. You see, in the year leading up to the book's publication, Byron Preiss traveled across America to 12 major cities. In each city, he visited a park. In each park, he disguised himself as a construction guide, went to a secluded spot, dug a hole, and in the hole he placed a 1 cubic foot plexiglass box. In each box, he placed a handmade ceramic cask, and in each cask, he placed a matching ceramic key. Those keys, when found, could be redeemed back with him in exchange for a gemstone valued at $1,000.
Here at this park.
Well, we'll get to
Oh.
don't worry. So, how do you find these treasures? Well, each painting and each poem pair together. The book obviously has them all mixed up. You got to figure out which one goes with which. But once you pair them together, they correspond to one of the cities. And using the clues hidden in the painting and the directions described in the poem, they lead you directly to where the treasure is hidden. Pretty straightforward, right? It's actually a lot harder than Byron Preiss anticipated, because in the 42 years since the book's publication, only 3 of the 12 have been found. First, in 1983 in Chicago. Second, in 2005 in Cleveland. And the third, in 2019 in Boston. The remaining 9 are undiscovered. Now, for decades, fans have been poring over this book, theorizing, strategizing, trying to figure out which painting and which poem go together and what city they go to. And there are some prevailing theories, but one thing we know for certain, that in an email exchange with a fan in 2005, Byron Preiss said the simple sentence, "There is a cask in Houston." This is the only city that we know for a fact has an undiscovered treasure in it. We're pretty certain we know which painting and which poem go to Houston. The painting has a lone star in the sky, referencing Texas. There are numbers hidden in it that are the exact coordinates of the city of Houston. There are references to the Houston Zoo, to Galveston Bay. The poem has descriptions of the Glassell Art School, the engine, the steam engine that used to be here in the park. And the painting straight up has an outline of the aerial view of the reflecting pool and St. Houston statue. So we're pretty certain that it is here in Herman Park. And if you ask me, my own interpretation of the treasure clues, I believe it should be hidden in this grove of trees behind us.
Wow.
Now why don't I go grab a shovel and go pay my rent for the month? Well, Herman Park Conservancy strictly forbids any excavation without proper permitting. And considering that this treasure was buried without their permitting, they're not very willing to entertain treasure hunters. What's more, when Byron Preiss wrote this book, it was the 1980s. At that time, Herman Park was severely neglected. The park was falling into disrepair. No money was coming in to fix the place. The whole place was just falling apart. So the 1990s saw the formation of that Herman Park Conservancy that I mentioned a minute ago. They have started a non-stop series of renovations and beautification projects that still continues to this day. What this means is that many of the landmarks described in the paintings and poems have either been changed moved, or destroyed entirely. And the final nail of the coffin is that we can count on no new hints. Because Byron Price died in a car accident in 2005. Now his family has agreed to honor the terms of the treasure hunt, and they did in 2019 with the Boston treasure, but none of them know where they are hidden. Byron Price took the secret with him to his grave. So while the Houston treasure is the one that we actually know for a fact is here, it's possible this is the least likely treasure to ever get found. Well, with that being said, if you guys happen to have a shovel on you tonight, I promise I won't tell if you don't. Provided, of course, you give me my 50% finder's fee. Alright. Why do you think it's over there? Why do you think it's over there? I follow the directions. They the poem literally tells you which way to go. And if you look at a map...
What's the poem?
I'm sorry, what's the poem?
Yeah.
It doesn't have a name. It just is...
No, do you know the poem?
Not by heart, no.
Yeah, okay.
I can pull it up a little bit later if you want me
Because we can all get together and start carving for that.
If you look at a map of Herman Park from the 1980s, you can kind of, looking at the clues, kind of piece together where the starting point is and then where you go and where you end.
Oh.
So it's pretty awesome, pretty interesting.
Is there any groups that you know that are doing this?
Not any like major localized groups, kind of like a nationwide network of people like on chat rooms.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I feel like it's a big organization, it kind of goes against the spirit of the book, you know? The whole point is that... The official stance of the Herman Park Conservancy is that there is no treasure here, but that might be because they just do not want a bunch of people digging holes. And I mean, it's hard. You need a very good ground penetrating radar. You know, that's stuff's not an exact find. A lot of things like it doesn't say like, oh look, there's a box here. It's like there's a shape under here. And then even, you know, if you're checking it out, if you're using a probe, if you miss the box by an inch, you might as well just, you know, not have found it. I mean, it's off by an inch, off by a mile. It is a lot harder than people anticipate. It's hard work. you guys going to the restroom?
Yeah.
They might not be open. Just letting y'all know.
They're gonna go get some candy.
All right. This here is Miller Outdoor Theater. Now, those of y'all who are living in Houston, you guys ever been out here?
No.
Y'all?
I'm from
it's great.
Beaumont.
You guys, pretty cool, yeah?
I've been to musical performances, movies, plays.
Oh yeah, I
ballet.
mean, they do everything from plays to musicals to like music performances. They do operas, they do comedy shows, they do dance performances, they do movie screenings, you name it. And because it is operated and run by the park, everything is free. If you want a seat in the actual seats, you still have to get a ticket online. It just doesn't cost anything. You just gotta put your name on it. However, if you want to, you can just go pull up a chair or get your favorite blanket or towel and sit out on the grassy hill in the back. Very nice way to spend like a a spring afternoon or evening.
They also do fireworks performance here.
They do a fireworks performance here every 4th of July.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh.
It's you name it, they got it, and it's awesome. Now, I know some of y'all said that y'all have some theater history,
Yeah.
so y'all probably know that theater people.
I've actually got to run and take her to the restroom.
I'm sorry.
I got to run and take her to the restroom.
Okay. We are basically
You know
going to be
the
going
closest
from
one?
here back towards the statue. So I don't know how long y'all are going to take. I don't know where the nearest restroom is, but if y'all are able to find us,
All right, appreciate it.
we'll be along that way.
Or
Thank
Papa Squat.
Yeah, the problem is that unless there's an event going on here, there is no open public restroom. I don't know. Oh yeah, so theater people, they're a superstitious lot. They have all kinds of superstitions. You know, you never whistle in the theater. You always leave the ghost light on. You never say that one Shakespeare play
What
when
is
in the
it?
theater.
What is it?
Scottish one. We're in the theater. I'm not going to tell you.
Oh
But
God.
It's bad luck. It's very bad luck. I mean, even break a leg itself is a phrase born out of superstition.
Got it.
Now, one other superstition that is pretty universal is that every theater, from the biggest opera house to the smallest little middle school auditorium, has its own ghost. Every theater's got its own ghost. And this one is no different. This ghost is known as the Woman in Blue, but longtime employees here know her as Sarah Moore. Sarah Moore was a young opera starlet back in the 1930s when this theater was first built. And she was a rising star, you know, really kind of up and coming. And she's believed to have had an undiagnosed heart condition that went unnoticed until the opening night of her first big role. She steps out on stage in a beautiful blue gown and she starts to sing. But as soon as she hits her first long sustained high note, her heart gives out and she collapses dead on stage. On the 1-year anniversary of her death, the opera company puts on a performance of that same opera in her memory. And right around the same part of the show where she died, there is a lethal stabbing in the audience. 3 men are stabbed and there is a mass panic. Now, whenever events like this happen, police spend days interviewing every single person they can find who was there to build a complete and total picture of what happened from every conceivable angle. As they're interviewing people, one person that everyone seems to describe is a woman in blue, standing in the back, belting at the top of her lungs, trying to warn people. However, they cannot find this woman to interview her. They can't even find out who she is until they interview members of the opera company. And they all identify her as Sarah Moore. Sarah is still seen to this day. I am willing to put money that almost every single performance